Hey everybody, my name is Josh LaFleur from Late Star Piano. Today we're going to be going over the teaching versus playing abilities for anyone. Now, this is really specifically for piano, of course, but being able to teach piano and being able to physically play the piano are two very different skills, and they are skills that need to be mastered, okay? If you want to teach or if you go to a teacher, ideally they should have both. Okay. So a lot of the time, the problem comes from a person, especially if they start younger in life. Say they start at 5 years old, 8 years old, something like that, or they're some kind of child prodigy and they have perfect pitch and they know exactly what the notes to do and they're amazing from the get-go at piano. That's not to discredit them in any way. I know that they practiced, and just because they have God-given talent doesn't mean they're going to be an instant success. But there are people like that. I'm sure you know people like that. I know I do, who were just savants at the piano right away, almost immediately. The problem with that is oftentimes they're not able to actually teach what they know because it came to them so easily. It's almost like second nature. It's like they're touched from the gods, from the divine. They have this superpower almost, right? They have this superpower, and because they've always been able to do it, they can't really teach it. Imagine teaching someone how to like breathe, for example. You've been breathing your entire life. So if you try to actually explain that to somebody, how would you even start to explain that? It would be much more difficult to do than actually doing the skill itself, right? Breathing is super easy, but actually explaining someone to someone who's never breathed before how to do it might be kind of difficult. And same thing with the piano. If somebody's super good at the piano from the get-go, they often can't teach what they know again because it came so easily. And I know I've heard stories of this, not me personally, but I've heard other people who I know that play the piano that went to some recognized teacher in their town or whatever who was like the guy for piano lessons. And they just didn't get along with the teacher. They didn't understand what they were saying. They weren't able to communicate effectively with the student. And the teacher was an amazing player. He was great at what he did, but he wasn't good at teaching. And that's kind of the point of this whole video. When you go to a teacher, ideally you want both, of course, right? You want to be perfect at teaching and perfect at playing. But if you can't have both, I would say the better thing to do is have somebody who's a really good teacher. It doesn't matter as much if they can play the piano. You want them to be able to play the piano, obviously, but you want them to understand more about music in general. You want them to be able to understand how the piano works, what it should sound like versus what it shouldn't sound like. And then you want them to be able to communicate that with you. If they have that baseline knowledge and they understand how music works, how the piano works, and they can teach it effectively to where they can take what's in their head and transfer it to you, that's when the magic really happens. That's when you become a great piano player because now you have that knowledge and you as a student, you can actually go to work to practice what you're being taught. Okay. So you can actually practice the physical movements of whatever you're learning and you have the correct direction of how to actually do that. So again, two different skills, playing the piano versus teaching. Ideally you want both, of course, but don't be afraid of the teacher who you maybe is not the best piano player, not the best in the world at least. But if they can teach, if they have that skill, that ability, and if you have that chemistry between student and teacher, you understand what they're saying, and they can communicate that effectively with you, that's really all you're looking for when you have that piano teacher. Everything else will be a lot smoother from there. So I hope that helps. Any questions, let me know. Again, my name is Josh LaFleur from Late Star Piano.